First contact's price. The Meridian's bridge fell silent as Captain Sarah Chen watched the alien warship tear through another civilian transport. Debris scattered across the void, glittering like cruel stars against the backdrop of the gas giant Kepler 186F. Her hands gripped the command chair's armrests, knuckles white beneath her dark skin. Status on the artillery evacuation, she demanded, eyes fixed on the tactical display. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cracked as he reported, 60% complete, Captain. But the Craxi warships are closing in on the colony's main settlement. We're out of time. The artillery weren't warriors. Their crystalline bodies housed brilliant minds that had given the galaxy revolutionary advances in medicine and quantum physics. But against the Craxi Empire's invasion fleet, their peaceful nature had become a death sentence. Open a channel to the Craxi flagship, Sarah ordered, rising from her chair. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Confederation for 3 years. They were the newest members, still viewed with suspicion by many species. But the artillery had been the first to welcome them, to share knowledge freely. The Craxi commander's reptilian face filled the main screen, scales gleaming with bioluminescent patterns that signaled aggression. Human vessel, this territory is now under Craxi protection. Withdraw or be destroyed. Sarah's voice remained steady as she responded. Protection. Is that what you call slaughtering civilian transports? The weak must submit to the strong. This is the law of nature, the Craxi commander hissed. Your species is young. You do not understand galactic politics. Oh, we understand perfectly, Sarah replied, entering commands into her tactical console. We understand that right now, 600,000 artillery civilians are about to die because no one else will stand up to you. We understand that you think might makes right. The Craxi commander's scales flickered with amusement. One ship against our fleet. Your species' reputation for courage borders on madness. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Who said anything about one ship? At that moment, the rest of the Terran 7th Fleet dropped out of hyperspace behind the Meridian. 30 ships, from nimble corvettes to the massive dreadnought Humanity's Shield, took up defensive positions around the artillery colony. Fascinating thing about humans, Sarah continued, watching the Craxi commander's scales pale. We have this thing called empathy. Makes it really hard for us to watch bullies hurt innocent people. Computer, display current fleet deployment. The tactical display showed the human ships had positioned themselves in a dome formation over the colony. Not attack positions, defensive ones. Last chance, Sarah announced. Withdraw your forces, or we'll show you exactly why the Confederation was so nervous about letting us join. The Craxi commander's response was to launch fighters. Sarah sighed. They never take the easy way. All ships, Defensive Protocol Echo 7. Priority is civilian protection. Lieutenant Rodriguez, get me a channel to Admiral Patel. Time to show the galaxy how humans wage war. What followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The human fleet didn't just fight. They shielded. Every offensive action was calculated to protect the artillery. Point defense systems intercepted missiles meant for civilian shelters. Corvettes sacrificed optimal firing positions to draw fire away from evacuation routes. In the command center of the artillery colony, Elder Cristallos watched in amazement as the humans transformed warfare into an act of protection. They're taking damage they could avoid, he observed to his aide, just to keep our people safe. Tactical analysis suggests their ships could destroy the Craxi fleet 43% faster if they focused purely on offense, the aide noted. Yet they choose to prioritize our safety over military efficiency, Cristallos mused. Fascinating. Back on the Meridian's bridge, Sarah coordinated the defense while monitoring the evacuation's progress. A Craxi cruiser broke through the line, heading for the colony's medical center. Without hesitation, Sarah ordered her ship into its path, taking hits meant for the facility. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, Rodriguez reported, gripping his console as the ship shuddered. Shields at 32%. Reroute power from non-essential systems, Sarah ordered. We hold this line. Period. The battle raged for 3 hours. When it ended, the Craxi fleet was in retreat, and not a single Arturi civilian had been lost. The human ships bore the scars of their choice to prioritize protection over efficiency, but their crews stood proud. In the aftermath, as medical ships arrived to treat the wounded, Elder Crystallos requested a meeting with Captain Chen. The Arturi leader's crystalline form sparkled with emotion as he addressed her. Your people fought like nothing we've ever seen, he said. You had the power to destroy, yet you chose to shield, to protect. Why? Sarah looked out the viewport at her damaged fleet. Because that's what humans do. We're not warriors who learn to care. We're caregivers who learn to fight. There's a difference. Crystallos was quiet for a moment. The Confederation feared your species' capacity for violence when you were discovered. They did not understand. Understand what? That the same drive that makes humans dangerous to their enemies makes them invaluable to their friends. The Elder's crystal structure pulsed with warm light. Today, you have shown the galaxy a new way to wage war, not for conquest or glory, but for the protection of others. As Sarah looked out at the stars, she knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had revealed its true nature to the galaxy. They weren't conquerors or simply warriors. They were guardians, and the galaxy was about to learn that when humans fight to protect, they never back down. News of the battle spread quickly through Confederation space. Species that had once feared humanity's potential for violence began to see it in a new light. The Craxi Empire had learned a costly lesson. Humans fight hardest not for territory or resources, but for those who cannot fight for themselves. And in the darkness between the stars, other powers took note. Humanity had shown its hand, not a fist raised in aggression, but a shield offered in protection. The galaxy would never be the same. The weight of mercy. Admiral James Patel stood before the Confederation Security Council, his dark eyes steady as he faced the assembled alien representatives. The chamber's holographic displays showed the aftermath of the Arturi defense. Human ships bearing scars from shots they'd chosen to take, protecting civilian targets. Your tactical analysis makes no sense, declared Vorkath, the Sentinel representative, their crystalline form vibrating with confusion. Your fleet sustained 47% more damage than necessary. Combat algorithms indicate you could have achieved victory with minimal losses through conventional engagement. That's because you're calculating success wrong, James replied, bringing up new holographic data. Our metrics weren't based on enemy ships destroyed or territory held. Look at these numbers instead. The display shifted to show civilian casualty statistics. 0. Evacuation completion rate, 100%. Cultural heritage sites preserved, 100%. The alien representatives murmured among themselves. The Craxi Empire has lodged formal protests, announced High Counselor Zenith, her ethereal form shimming with concern. They claim your defensive tactics prolonged the conflict unnecessarily. James allowed himself a small smile. They're right. We did prolong it. Every minute we kept them engaged was another minute for civilians to reach safety. That was the point. In the observation gallery, Captain Sarah Chen watched the proceedings with Dr. Lyra Nash, the fleet's chief ctenopsychologist. The doctor's weathered face creased with worry as she reviewed data on her tablet. They're still not getting it, Lyra muttered. They see our actions as militarily inefficient because they're measuring the wrong outcomes. Below, James activated another holographic display, this one showing the Craxi fleet's retreat. Look at their formation as they withdrew. Notice anything unusual? The alien representatives studied the data. Finally, T. Lara of the Meridian Collective spoke up, her feathered crest rising in surprise. They maintained distance from civilian structures, even when tactical advantage could be gained by using them as shields. Exactly, James nodded. By the end of the battle, we'd forced them to adapt to our priorities. They learned that attacking civilians would only strengthen our resolve and increase their losses. The chamber erupted in discussion. Humanity's approach to warfare wasn't just unusual, it was contagious. The Craxi had begun mimicking human protective patterns, if only out of tactical necessity. In orbit above the Arturi homeworld, the human fleet was already implementing the lessons learned from the battle. Engineer Maya Rodriguez, Lieutenant Rodriguez's sister, supervised the installation of enhanced shield generators on Arturi defense platforms. The shields are calibrated to prioritize civilian areas, she explained to a group of crystalline Arturi engineers. But the real innovation is here. She pointed to a new subsystem. It's designed to protect the attackers from their own Rekachets. We call it the Mercy Shield. One of the Arturi engineers chimed in confusion. You seek to protect those who would harm us. Maya's hands moved deftly over the controls as she replied. The best way to end a fight is to show your opponent a better way. Every shot they fire that bounces back at them is a lesson in the cost of aggression. Back in the council chamber, James was addressing the deeper implications of human military doctrine. We've analyzed every major conflict in our history, he explained. The ones that led to lasting peace weren't won through superior firepower. They were won by changing how our opponents thought about warfare itself. He brought up historical images. Former enemies working together to rebuild, soldiers sharing meals with civilians they'd protected, medics treating wounded from both sides. Humanity learned these lessons the hard way, James continued. Through centuries of conflict, we discovered that true victory isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about creating conditions where they no longer want to be your enemy. High Counselor Zenith's form pulsed with thoughtful light. Yet your species maintains significant military power. Because someone needs to be strong enough to protect the peaceful, James answered. The Arturi contributed more to galactic medicine in the past decade than most species do in centuries. They deserve the chance to continue that work without fear. In the defense platform control room, Maya was finishing the shield installations when alarms blared. A small group of Craxi raiders, apparently acting without official sanction, had emerged from hyperspace. Perfect timing, Maya muttered, activating the new defense grid. Time for a practical demonstration. The raiders opened fire, their shots aimed at the civilian sectors. The new shields flared to life, not only stopping the attacks but reflecting them back with perfect precision. The raiders found themselves dodging their own weapons, sending them a message. Maya explained to the amazed Arturi engineers. Every aggressive action comes with a cost to themselves. What happened next surprised even Maya. The raider ships, after several minutes of effectively fighting themselves, withdrew, but not before transmitting a request for technical data on the shield designs. In the council chamber, James received the report with satisfaction. And that, he said, is how humans wage war. We don't just protect ourselves and our allies. We teach our enemies the value of protection. The council session ended with an unprecedented decision. The Confederation would establish a new military doctrine, incorporating human defensive principles. Ships across the galaxy would be retrofitted with Mercy shields. As Sarah and Lyra left the observation gallery, the captain smiled. They're starting to understand, she said. Understand what? Lyra asked. That humanity's greatest weapon isn't our capacity for violence, Sarah replied. It's our ability to turn enemies into students of peace. In orbit, the Arturi defense platform stood ready, their new shields glowing softly. They were more than just defensive installations now. They were monuments to a new way of thinking about conflict, one that recognized that the strongest shield is the one that protects everyone, even those who attack it. The galaxy was learning, one battle at a time, that human warfare wasn't about defeating enemies. It was about creating allies, even from those who started as adversaries. And in that approach lay the seeds of a more lasting peace than any conventional victory could achieve. Warriors of compassion. The emergency alert pierced the quiet of the Meridian's night shift. Captain Sarah Chen rushed to the bridge, still pulling on her uniform jacket. The tactical display showed a situation she'd hoped never to see. A Craxi civilian station under attack by separatist forces. "Status report," she ordered, taking her seat. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers flew over his console. "Craxi Station K7 is under assault by unknown forces. They're using older Craxi ship designs, suggesting separatist involvement. The station's sending out a general distress call." Sarah studied the tactical display. The station housed over 20,000 civilians, mostly families of Craxi military personnel. The same military that had tried to conquer the archery just months ago. "Message from Craxi High Command," Rodriguez announced. "They're requesting human assistance. Specifically, they're asking for us." The bridge fell silent. Sarah felt the weight of every eye on her. Their former enemies were asking for help protecting their families. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. "Plot an intercept course," she ordered, "and get me Admiral Patel." The Admiral's hologram appeared moments later. "Already approved, Captain," he said before she could speak. "Show them what human protection looks like, regardless of species." The Meridian dropped out of hyperspace near K7 to find chaos. The Separatists had adapted their tactics, using civilian ships as shields while attacking the station. They'd learned from fighting humans, but they'd learned the wrong lessons. "They think we won't engage with civilians in the crossfire," Sarah observed. "Time to show them how wrong they are. Deploy the new Sentinel drones." The Meridian's bay doors opened, releasing swarms of small, agile drones. Unlike traditional combat drones, these were equipped with localized versions of the Mercy Shield technology. They didn't attack. They protected. "Drones in position," Rodriguez reported, "creating safety corridors for civilian evacuation." Sarah opened a channel to the Separatist fleet. "This is Captain Chen of the Earth Ship Meridian. Your tactics dishonor everything the Mercy Shield stands for. We will demonstrate its true purpose." The Separatist commander's response was predictable. "You dare lecture us on honor? We learned from you. Use the enemy's weakness against them. You won't risk civilian casualties." Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. "You're right. We won't risk civilian casualties. We'll prevent them entirely." The Sentinel drones moved in perfect coordination, their shields linking to create protected pathways through the battlefield. Craxi civilian ships began moving to safety, covered by an umbrella of human technology. But Sarah wasn't done. "Deploy Phase 2. The drone shields suddenly expanded, enveloping not just civilian ships but the Separatist vessels as well. Each rebel ship found itself contained within a bubble of Mercy Shield energy. "Fun thing about our shield technology," Sarah broadcast to the increasingly panicked Separatists. "It doesn't just reflect energy weapons. It can redirect kinetic energy too. Every time you fire your engines to maneuver, that force gets reflected right back at you. You're not going anywhere." In the Confederation Security Council, the emergency session watched the battle unfold with fascination. The humans had turned defensive technology into a perfect containment system. "Remarkable," High Counselor Zenith observed. "They've neutralized the threat without firing a single shot." Dr. Lyra Nash, now serving as humanities military attaché to the Council, nodded. "It's a principle we learned in martial arts. Use your opponent's strength against them. The more they struggle, the more they trap themselves." The Separatists learned this lesson quickly. Every attempt to break free only drained their ship's energy faster. Within hours, they had no choice but to surrender. But it was what happened next that truly shocked the galaxy. Sarah ordered medical teams to the captured ships immediately. Their life support systems are strained from fighting against the containment fields. They need help. The Separatist commander, being treated for minor injuries in the Meridian's medical bay, couldn't comprehend it. "We tried to use your own tactics against you. We endangered civilians. Why are you helping us?" Dr. Kara Mitchell, the Meridian's chief medical officer, answered as she treated his wounds. "Because that's what the Mercy Shield really means. It's not just about protecting some people, it's about protecting everyone. even those who fight against us. On K7, the Craxi station commander, scale leader Vextor, requested a meeting with Sarah. His scales showed patterns of deep emotion as he spoke. "When we fought you at Arturi, we thought your protective tactics were weakness," he admitted. "Today you protected our families using the same principles you used to defeat us. I have much to learn." Sarah's response was to hand him a data crystal. "These are the complete schematics for the Sentinel drones and their shield systems. Your engineers can adapt them to defend all your civilian installations." Vextor's scales flickered in shock. "You would give us this technology after we were your enemies." "Former enemies," Sarah corrected. "Current students. Future allies, I hope." The news spread quickly through Confederation space. Humanity had not only protected their former enemies, but had shared the technology to help them protect themselves. It was a level of compassion in warfare that many species had never considered possible. In the council chamber, Dr. Nash was explaining the broader implications. "This is how humanity transforms conflict. We don't just win battles, we win hearts. Every life we protect, every enemy we show mercy to, becomes a potential ambassador for a different way of thinking about warfare." The Craxi Empire, influenced by the events at K7, began a comprehensive review of their military doctrine. Their traditional belief that might makes right was being challenged by the evidence that protection generates more lasting power than conquest. And in the darkness of space, the Meridian continued its patrol, its holds now stocked with both weapons and medical supplies, its crew ready to either defend or heal. They carried with them the truth that humanity had learned through centuries of conflict. True strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to protect. Even those who would destroy you. The shield of tomorrow. The war room aboard humanity's shield hummed with tension as Admiral James Patel studied the strategic display. A massive fleet of unknown origin had appeared at the edge of Confederation space, destroying every probe sent to investigate. Their ships were like nothing ever seen. Massive organic mechanical hybrids that seemed to absorb energy weapons. "The swarm," murmured scale leader Vextor, his scales patterns showing deep concern. "They're supposed to be a myth, a race of living ships that consume everything in their path." Sarah Chen, recently promoted to fleet captain, watched the tactical projections with growing concern. The swarm vessels were approaching the Craxis Archery border, the region where former enemies had become uncertain allies under humanity's influence. "Conventional weapons are useless," reported Dr. Maya Rodriguez, now chief of Federation Engineering. "They don't just resist our attacks. They feed on them. Each hit makes them stronger." Admiral Patel's expression remained calm. "Then we don't attack. We adapt." He turned to the assembled representatives of 30 species. "Everything we've learned about protection is about to be tested." The joint fleet assembled at the border was unprecedented. Human ships flew alongside Craxi cruisers, while archery science vessels coordinated with dozens of other species. Unity born not of fear, but of a shared commitment to protection. "All ships implement Protocol Aegis," Sarah broadcast from the Meridian. The fleet moved into formation, mercy shields linking together to create a massive defensive barrier. But this wasn't the same technology they'd used months ago. Maya's voice came over the command channel. "Remember, these are Mark VI shields. They don't just reflect energy. They redistribute it through the entire network. The more they hit us, the stronger our shield wall becomes." The swarm struck like a tide of living metal. Their ships crashed against the shield barrier, energy weapons pounding against humanity's defensive technology. But something unexpected happened. "Energy readings are off the scale," Maya reported excitedly. "The shield network isn't just absorbing their attacks, it's learning from them, adapting its frequency to match their biomechanical resonance." Sarah watched in amazement as the shields began to pulse with new patterns. "They're not just protecting us anymore. They're communicating." Dr. Lyra Nash, monitoring from her xenopsychology lab, suddenly burst onto the command channel. They're ships. They're not just vessels. They're a collective consciousness. The shields are creating a bridge between our minds and theirs. The swarm's attack faltered as the shield wall pulsed with patterns of light. Through the neural interface of the Mark VI system, intentions and emotions flowed both ways. The swarm had never encountered a species that could touch their collective mind. "They're running from something," Lyra reported, her voice thick with shared emotion. "Their home galaxy is dying. They don't want to destroy. They're desperate to survive." Admiral Patel stepped forward. "Open a full channel through the shield network. Let's show them another way." Through the neural bridge of the Mercy Shields, humanity shared its most powerful weapon: empathy. The swarm experienced thousands of years of human history in moments. They felt the pain of war, the power of protection, the strength found in defending others. The massive swarm vessels began to change, their organic components shifting into new configurations. Where there had been weapons, now there were shield generators. The living ships had learned, in one moment of connection, what humanity had learned over centuries. "They're adapting their entire biology," Maya whispered in awe. "Taking our defensive technology and integrating it into their very being." The shield wall transformed into something entirely new, a bridge between civilizations. The swarm's vast knowledge of biological technology merged with human defensive innovations, creating something neither could have achieved alone. In the aftermath, as the combined fleet helped guide the swarm to uninhabited systems they could colonize, Sarah found herself in a quiet conversation with a swarm consciousness projected through the shield network. "You could have destroyed us," the alien thoughts echoed in her mind. "Your shields could have reflected our energy back until we burned out. Why show us mercy?" Sarah smiled. "Because that's not who we are. Humanity's strength isn't in our ability to destroy. It's in our capacity to transform enemies into allies, to show better ways to use power." The Confederation Security Council was in session for weeks analyzing the implications. Humanity's defensive technology had evolved from a simple protection system into a means of communication, understanding, and transformation. The Mercy Shields have become more than we ever imagined. Admiral Patel addressed the Council. "They're not just defensive barriers anymore. They're bridges between civilizations. Tools for turning conflict into connection." The swarm began sharing their biomechanical expertise with the Confederation. Their living ships, once instruments of consumption, were redesigned as massive shields protecting entire solar systems. The very force that had threatened to destroy them had become their strongest defense. Maya found herself working alongside swarm engineers, their shared consciousness helping perfect the integration of biological and mechanical protection systems. "It's beautiful," she told Sarah during a break. "They understand protection in their very DNA now. They're taking what we taught them and evolving it into something entirely new." The galaxy watched in amazement as former enemies, Craxi, Archery, and now even the swarm, worked together to create a network of living shields spanning entire sectors. Humanity's doctrine of protection had evolved into something far more powerful than any weapon, a means of transformation. As the Meridian patrolled the new shield network, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. They had proved that the strongest shield wasn't the one that could absorb the most damage, but the one that could turn an enemy's power into a force for protection. The shield of tomorrow wasn't just a barrier. It was a bridge to understanding, a tool for transformation, and a testament to humanity's greatest discovery. That true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the power to transform destruction into protection. Legacy of the Guardians. 10 years after the swarm's integration into the Confederation, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Assembly stood transformed. Where once separate species sat in isolated sections, now representatives mingled freely beneath the soft glow of a miniaturized Mercy Shield network. The shield's neural interface hummed with the gentle background of shared understanding between dozens of species. Admiral Sarah Chen, her captain's uniform now bearing the insignia of the Confederation Defense Force, stood at the podium. Behind her, the massive viewing window showed Earth rotating peacefully below, host to the first galactic assembly held in human space. A decade ago, she began. Humanity entered galactic society as newcomers, viewed with suspicion for our capacity for warfare. Today, we gather to inaugurate something unprecedented, the Galactic Guardian Corps. The assembled representatives, from crystalline archery to biomechanical swarm collectives, felt her words both through air and neural resonance. Among them sat familiar faces: Maya Rodriguez, now Director of SHIELD Integration; Vextor, Supreme Commander of the reformed Craxi Defense Force; and Dr. Lyra Nash, Head of Interspecies Psychology. The Corps represents more than just a military force, Sarah continued. It embodies everything we've learned about the true nature of strength. Each member species brings unique insights into protection. The massive holographic display activated, showing the transformation of galactic society. Craxi warships, once instruments of conquest, now served as rapid response rescue vessels. Swarm biological technology had evolved into living shield systems that could heal themselves and those they protected. Archery crystalline science had merged with human defensive innovations to create shields that could protect against even temporal attacks. But our greatest achievement, Sarah said, her voice carrying emotion accumulated through years of service, isn't technological. It's philosophical. The display shifted to show scenes from across Confederate space, former enemy species working together to evacuate civilians from natural disasters, swarm ships using their biological technology to heal damaged ecosystems, and Craxi warriors teaching defensive techniques to young archery. We've proven that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to protect. Not in standing alone, but in standing together. The Guardian Corps isn't just about defending territory. It's about preserving life, understanding, and hope. In orbit, the combined fleet of all Confederation species maneuvered in perfect harmony, their shields linked in a demonstration of unity. Each ship's design reflected their species' unique approach to protection, yet all worked together as one defensive network. Maya took the podium next, her engineer's passion evident as she described the latest innovations. The Mark X Mercy Shield doesn't just protect against physical attacks. It creates understanding. When activated, it allows different species to share not just thoughts, but perspectives, to truly comprehend each other's ways of seeing the universe. The assembly watched in awe as she demonstrated. The shield network illuminated, and suddenly each being could experience the other's perception of reality. The crystalline beauty of archery thought patterns, the vast collective consciousness of the swarm, the proud warrior traditions of the Craxi, all became accessible, understandable. Vextor rose to speak, his scales shimmering with formal patterns. My people once believed that might made right. Humans showed us a greater truth, that protection generates more power than conquest. Today, the Craxi Empire exists only in history books. We are now the Craxi Protectorate, and we could not be prouder. A swarm consciousness manifested through the shield network, its thoughts reaching all present. We came as consumers, seeking to devour. Humanity taught us to nurture instead. Our living ships now create rather than destroy. This is true evolution. Dr. Nash presented her findings on the psychological impact of the SHIELD network. We're seeing unprecedented levels of empathy and understanding between species. The ability to share perspectives through the SHIELD network isn't just preventing conflicts, it's making them increasingly unthinkable. Why fight those whose hearts you can feel? But it was the next speaker who truly captured the transformation. A young archery, not yet fully crystallized, approached the podium. Through the neural network, all could feel their mixture of nervousness and determination. I am the first of my kind to enter the Guardian Corps Academy, they announced. In our past, we were purely scientists, dependent on others for protection. Now we understand that knowledge and protection are two sides of the same crystal. Our research serves not just to understand the universe, but to protect it. Sarah returned to conclude the ceremony. The display showed the Guardian Corps' insignia, a shield containing symbols of all member species, surrounded by stars. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not our technology, not our tactics, but our understanding that true strength lies in protection, in standing between the innocent and harm, in turning enemies into allies through understanding and compassion. The assembled representatives rose as one, their combined consciousness resonating through the shield network with shared purpose. The Guardian Corps was more than a defensive force. It was a testament to how far they'd all come, and a promise of how far they could go together. In orbit, the combined fleet began its first official patrol as the Guardian Corps. Each ship carried crews from multiple species, their differences transformed from barriers into strengths. The shields that linked them pulsed with shared determination, to protect, to understand, to transform. As Sarah watched them depart, she reflected on humanity's journey. They had entered galactic society feared for their capacity for warfare. They would be remembered for teaching the galaxy that the greatest power lies not in the ability to take life, but in the choice to protect it. The legacy of the Guardians would echo through the stars, a testament to the truth humanity had learned through centuries of conflict, that the strongest shield is not the one that can absorb the most damage, but the one that can transform opposition into alliance, conflict into understanding, and fear into hope. And in the vast darkness between the stars, that shield continued to grow stronger with each passing day.